Good morning. This is Back Garden Reads. Today I'm doing a review on The Infinite and the Divine. It's a Black Library Warhammer 40k book by Robert Rath, and it is a standalone, so you can just read this by itself and you'd be good, right? You could read this by itself. You don't really need anything else to enjoy this book, to get into this book. But if you do know a little bit about Trazen and Orokin, then that's just icing on the top, you could say. One thing that I would say is about this book is that it's something that spans across thousands upon thousands upon thousands of years, right? Perhaps millions of years. That's the whole point of this book, and you can see a lot of this is this very petty rivalry between the two characters you see on the cover. It's a very, very petty rivalry in which it begins with him just going on the world, and it's all centered around this one single world, right? Where it has many different names over the aeons, right? There's like the name that the Necrons have before they were the Necrons, like the Necron tier, I believe. And then the name that the Eldari had, or the space elves, and then the name that the humans have, right? Or the Imperium, you could say. I have to begin with is that I like the cover is because, you know, these two guys don't really like each other throughout most of the book, right? And they do have a rivalry, and at some point it does go too far, and then they have to go like, fuck, okay, we have to begrudgingly like come together and try to solve a problem. And it goes through, and you can see like the planet here is like, that's the planet when they first visit, and then it eventually just starts degrading until it's just a little grey mud ball right there, yeah? And so like there and there. Switches back and forth mostly through Trazen and Orokin. Mostly switch back and forth between these two. And occasionally you get other perspectives, right? But they're usually very brief, like maybe a paragraph or two before it changes. And usually when it changes between, there's like a scene break, which is like a little gap between the paragraphs where there's like no words whatsoever, and then it changes between them. And so sometimes you get it between like a shift between Trazen, like something happens and then it shifts to Orokin, or then it shifts back to Trazen, and so on. A lot of this book is about trying to find this treasure that is found on like a vault of a Necron tomb vault on this planet, and they want to open it and find out what's inside, blah blah blah, and possibly very, very valuable for the entirety of the Necron civilization. One thing that you probably just noticed is that I've used a lot of words that are probably just like, I have no idea what you said. And for those of you that are like that, well, fair enough. That can be a bit confusing to say. If you wanted a primer before reading this, well, good luck. There are thousands of hours of podcasts or videos where they talk about like Trazen, Orokin, the Necron tier, Warhammer 40k in general. There's so much of it. It's it's getting a lot of coverage in recent months, and unfortunately very negative coverage because of Henry Cavill refusing to do the Amazon series of something Warhammer 40k. But you get a general you on one thing, something that you get in through the books is that you get the general idea of the two main characters, and you kind of get this understand. You go through the pettiness of, like, sometimes they just go, I just gonna kill you because fuck you, right? And they don't really kill each other. They can't really kill each other. There's something that you need to that's partially explained. It's not really explained in the book, and you don't really. And it's written in such a way where you don't really need to know all the lore to get an appreciation of the book. You appreciate it a whole lot more when you do know a little bit about the lore and the characters and the creatures and the spaces and the abilities and all that sort of thing. But otherwise, you absolutely don't need it. As someone who does enjoy a little bit of the of Warhammer 40k, I do find that the Necrons, which these two guys are part of, are very interesting because, I don't know, I just like the kind of this skeletal Egyptian sort of style, and it's just like really cool. But one thing you could say is like the Egyptian space terminators, which is kind of a funny, cool way of explaining what they are. And you get like these powers that they have, like he can like turn back time and then rewrite that little time period. He can like transfer into bodies, surrogate bodies at will, like switching bodies straight away, which is pretty cool. And they have these interesting sorts of equipment and abilities, but when it comes to the equipment and abilities and maybe some other things, it can be a bit confusing for the layman, which again might be a little bit of a turn off for some people. However, it is still just a very good read, and I would recommend it overall. For those who don't understand and want to kind of understand the whole Warhammer 40k thing, I can read this one excerpt. You can just find it anywhere. Is, for more than 100 centuries, the Emperor has sat immobile on the golden throne of Earth. He is the master of mankind. By the might of his inexhaustible armies, a million worlds stand against the dark. Yet he is a rotting carcass, the carrion lord of the Imperium, held in life by marvels from the dark age of technology, and 1,000 souls sacrificed each day so that his may continue to burn. To be a man in such times is to be one amongst untold billions. It is to live in the cruelest and most bloody regime imaginable. It is to suffer an eternity of carnage and slaughter. It is to have cries of anguish and sorrow drowned by the thirsting laughter of dark gods. This is a dark and terrible era where you will find little comfort or hope. Forget the power of technology and science, forget the promise of progress and advancement, forget any notion of common humanity or compassion. There is no peace amongst the stars, for in the grim darkness of the far future there is only war. Now, that's a great... Now, they probably have that in every book. I haven't read... This is the only book I've read of the Warhammer 40k, but if they have that in the beginning of each one, then it can have a very great primer, and it like gets people to really sort of understand, like, okay, get into the mood and go like, oh, okay, I know what this is going to be about. There's like a ton of book series. There's like one book series of the Horus Heresy, which is very well known at this point, and there's like something of like almost like 50 book long series, which is kind of an insane number for a book series, really. One continuous book series, which kind of has little branches off and here and there, but that's beside the point. As a standalone sci-fi book, this can work really well, and can be an interesting primer for people to get into Warhammer 40k, specifically the books, and specifically the faction of the Necrons, which can be very interesting, though from what I hear, they don't have as many sorts of stories or about them as do the Imperium of Man, which is like the Space Marines and the Sisters of Battle. Like you'll get more of them, or like specifically the Boys in Blue, and you find like lots of interesting sorts of books there. But as a standalone, this works really well, and I can't recommend it more. It's just very interesting sci-fi, and I can't wait to read more if I'm able to anyway.